The presence of the first Africans in Canada can be traced back to the 1600s. Their stories of strength, courage, and perseverance in the struggle for freedom are an integral part of not only American but Canadian heritage as well. This is the African Descent Canadian History in British Columbia.
Welcome to, I think, Surrey Public Library. And I'm very sure this is the first Black History Month or African Descent History Month here at Surrey Public Library. I have been doing a presentation to so many different libraries here across the province, and especially here in Surrey, Samiaho, Cloverdale. In some of the events you find smaller groups of people like this, and while others just you find larger groups, so it varies, you know. And the space doesn't matter, but what is it, the knowledge we are sharing within that particular space, that is very, very, very important, you know. So the space is always not the most important strategic part when you are sharing knowledge. So when you think about the time of Jesus, the times of the prophet Muhammad, the times of all the prophets when they were preaching and giving up messages, they could not find such big spaces where they could deliver the message. Some of the times, whenever the message comes to them in very small groups under the tree, you know, Jesus, they've never been with a church, a magnificent church as we see, whether the Prophet Muhammad had constructed big mosques as we see them today, mausoleums, you know. But what was really very important during that time is the importance of the knowledge within that particular space. So I just wanted to comfort you that this space is not about the largest number of people that we are expecting. We didn't come here because we are expecting thousands of people here. We just came to celebrate the Black History Month, 2024 February, on this particular day, and we were well equipped as it is. And thank you so much. This number here, the groups of people who are here, is really, really a very great number. So thank you so much. Whenever you came from, I can see various different groups of people, and that's what makes us being Canadians. You know, for me, when I come into the space and it comprises the mixing up of Canadians, that's my day. So I think we should give ourselves applause for making it today to come up here. Thank you so much. Okay. So having said all of that, as we all know, that in 1995, Honorable Jean Augustine and the other members, politicians here in the country, other political leaders, they thought about certain questions they were asking into Canadian Parliament, why there is no, if we celebrate the Lunar New Year, we celebrate the Canada Day, we celebrate so many public events here in the country, and then they had to think about why there is no celebration of the people of African descent. You know, why there is no celebration of the blacks, Canadians, the Afro-Caribbean, you know, the Afro-African descendants. You know, it's important for us to learn and celebrate our history, all of us together, isn't it? Yes, very, very important. And it is all what makes us the intercultural understanding. That's how we can do to celebrate and fight for anti-racism, you know, by learning from each other's culture. And one of the historians, he said, social scientist, he said that you can be born poor and you die a billionaire, but your culture will never what? Will never change. You know? So you cannot change culture, otherwise you'll still, but it doesn't matter to learn from where you came from, your culture, our heritage still is important to celebrate it. And this is the importance for us to come here to give this this lecture in this afternoon, sharing my perspective and experience as a historian and educator about the history of these Afro-descendants. There is 1.5, I think, around 1.3, all the total population of people of African descent in Canada, comprised of 1 million Suri becomes the largest concentrated Afro descendants here in BC. And Vancouver, Metro Vancouver, leading to the total about close to 35,000 people who lived in BC, Metro Vancouver, and about 50,000 people that lives in the whole of the province. But the African descent, as you can see, they migrated in BC in the year of 1858, as you can see definitely to the first screen. And by 1972, the whole community had been definitely expropriated, destroyed because of the systematic racism. It happened here in Vancouver and Cloverdale, where there is Henry Scott Park, and then it happened to Victoria in Sanichi, in Salt Spring Island, Vancouver Island, and then it happened in Vancouver downtown east side, as well as Hoganizale, Strathcona, and Beat Lane in Vancouver. So why do the African descent people come to BC? You know, as you know, that racism in the United States, racial discrimination, and segregation as a result of the Jim Crow segregation during that time, separation of African Americans and the separation of the blacks and the white as the system applied into South Africa. There was a time when the African Americans reached an extent of the climax to decide whether they should stay in the United States or they should migrate to go to Mexico. And in 1858, United States had already demonstrated that they was unwilling to have a complete shared space with the blacks, or call them blacks or Negroes by that time, and then they thought about migrating. So in BC, the first governor of our province here, as you will see, James Douglas, who was racially mixed. His mother was black and his father was Scottish. So when he became a provincial governor here, he thought to invite the people of African descent from United States, as you will see. And then finally they arrived here in April, around April and May 1858. Very important year that we see the migration of Africans here in BC. And then 1972, community had been destroyed, as you will see later. And this map, as you can see definitely here, you've already seen Trans-Atlantic Ocean. This map you can already see in Europe and South America. As we know, all the transatlantic slave trade around the years of 15th century, lots of African Americans migrated from United States, from Africa, and then they have flocked them into the ships and then dumped them into Caribbean and the all parts of Americas. As they didn't come to America here as slaves, as it has been speculated. I just wanted to demystify that the Africans, they had no knowledge when they are leaving the continent. They came here very clearly knowing that they are going to get jobs. And about 11 million population Africans were taken out of the continent in various parts of the Africa, and then 350 ships sailed on the Atlantic Ocean. That has been remained the longest and the worst journey migration in the history of migration. And then there is East Indian Ocean, the Arabs, some of the Africans took the other part of the Arabs, and then from all that 11 million people, we could see them. Some they went to other parts of North America, others went into Europe, while others went into South America. Brazil becomes the largest concentrated of those Afro-descendants, with about 70 million people in Brazil identify themselves as Afro-descendants. So that's, you can see definitely that even the Caucasian and the Chinese, all of them, they all migrated from where? From Africa. As you know that apart from the Africans here, there is a group of people known as the Caucasian. They are rooted from a certain known as the human race known as the Homo Neanderthal. So the Homo Neanderthal culture or group race, those are the first race to leave the continent via Tanzania, going into Ethiopia, and then they grow directly up to the north in Europe. Greece becomes the central hub. That's where the history of Caucasian all come from. And then they metamorphosed into a form of community. Maybe because of the snow and the mix-up, they become white. But before, they are also part of the black race here. So whenever you see Caucasian, you just know that they are African. They are the first direct migrants to come here. And then the Chinese and the Asian, which I see in this room, they left under their Homo erectus. That was the second race to leave the continent following the Homo neanderthal. Like the same as the first migrant, they took all Ethiopia, but they didn't went into the north, they just went the eastward. Then went to Asia, East Asia, South Asia. Whenever you look at the Indian, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Filipinos, all you can definitely see the elements of Africa. They are all direct descendants from where? From Africa. And whenever you go to India, you wonder why there is black Indians.